Hello and welcome to Angry Andy Reviews, and this is my review for Dark Phoenix. And I'm really excited. Fantastic. Just from the off, I'm going to say it's absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. I can't recommend anybody seeing it in the cinema, to be quite honest. I really can't. But let's get going, shall we? So, almost 20 years worth of films, spanning decades of internal timeline progression and character spin-offs, and this is how the X-Men franchise ends, on a huge, disappointing whimper. Let's face it, the New Mutants film will probably never see the light of day on the big screen, and honestly, I'd be surprised if we ever saw it at all in any form at this point. Oh, what an absolute waste. So, Dark Phoenix is the story of Jean Grey, one of the most celebrated characters in comic book lore, being consumed by a power intent on corrupting the good inside of her, that is. The X-Men in this film engage on a desperate mission to rescue a stranded space shuttle, during which she is transformed by a cosmic force and subsequently wrestles with her own internal struggles and the truth about her past. Sound familiar? Well, that's because it is. We have had this same story, albeit with some addendums, with the film The Last Stand. And funnily enough, the writer of The Last Stand is the man solely in charge of Dark Phoenix, Simon Kinberg. And the Dark Phoenix storyline in the comics is seen as one of the great must-read adventures of any comic book series, let alone within the X-Men series. But as with The Last Stand, Dark Phoenix completely wastes its own potential and in the end becomes a trudgingly flat and boring mess of tired ideas and wasted characters. You follow up Days of Future Past and Logan with this. Great. Thank you very much. The greatest crime of this film is how utterly unexciting any of it feels, and how forced every breath of emotion feels. And it all stems from how quickly Jean transforms into this villain. There is no build-up to it. She is hit in space by a cosmic MacGuffin, next she's sat around a campfire, and then she goes ape. The context for it is off from the start, hinged upon a small detail surrounding her past, which is practically a carbon copy cut and paste job from The Last Stand, whereby Professor X lied to her about the death of her parents, and it all spirals predictably from there to the point where she kills Mystique. And that isn't even a shock, because the trailers practically gave away that plot angle months ago. Why? Why? Mystique's death is completely uninteresting. The Last Stand had played the death of Professor X as being the big twist, and to a degree it worked. Here in Dark Phoenix it screams of someone who wanted out of the franchise. There is no weight to it. There is no weight to any part of her exit. The response from characters such as Beast and Cyclops feels hollow and insipid. An exercise in paint-by-numbers characterization. Insipid. What a word that is. That's a great word. Use it more often. Now, the actors seem game to a point, and Michael Fassbender is probably the only one who truly still believes in the character, and it shows. He is solid and consistent as Magneto, but there is no meat to anything, and it all stems from bad writing. Every piece of dialogue is cliched and riddled with inconsistencies next to the tone of the film, which in itself feels odd. The problem is that the film bookends itself with action set pieces, meaning that there are large portions of the middle section where there is constant dialogue, which is fine. But when nothing of consequence or meaning is presented, it becomes a boring sludge of pointlessness. And it is boring. It's boring. And that's it. Dark Phoenix, if it's a roundup now, is quite simply boring. Not even the action set pieces save it. With the action, it all seems as though we've seen it all before. These characters are the X-Men. Any moment where they use their powers on screen should be received as a moment of joy and triumph. But not here. Not here. It's mundane, and the individual uses of power are scaled back so that just enough is fine for the situation. An example of which being Storm, when she's being battered by some guy with dreadlocks. You know, she could fry him instantly like Toad in the first X-Men film, but she doesn't. She instead allows herself to be beaten back, only to use ice balls to push him away. Ice balls. Storm, one of the most powerful characters of all, throws balls of ice at a weak C-grade mutant with no name. Brilliant. How entertaining. If anybody can tell me what the name of that mutant was with the dreadlocks, I'd love to know, because I can't be bothered researching it, because there's literally no point. I don't even know what happens to him. Or any of the other mutants that hang around with Magneto. No idea. The funny thing is as well, Cyclops, he can't aim properly. Even though he aims with his eyes, which means he aims at things by looking at them, but he still misses. Guess the plot dictated he must miss. Or maybe just it's the visuals, it's all about the visuals of seeing him accidentally blow up somebody's car. Fantastic. The ending train sequence, which was clearly added during the prolonged reshoots, just does about enough to save this film from being a complete train wreck, which is immensely ironic given that the set piece itself ends with a literal train wreck. But even here, the action is once again oddly flat and boring. Characters make really daft decisions, things happen for the visuals rather than in aid of the characters, and there is little to no consequence to any of it, and it is a huge shame, given the powerful impact that Logan had as a final film for a character. The opportunity was there to do something on par with that. Go headfirst into the pain of Jean and really give us something to remember, but it fails in every aspect. With so little emotion, with so little meaning, and with such flaccid results. I mean, the parallels to The Last Stand are so severe that it has the unfortunate power to make Dark Phoenix seem like a worse film. And for my money, I think it is. I really do think it is. Too much is the same, and too much is not enough. I mean, oh God, for goodness sake, Jean is wearing a red trench coat again. It's suggesting that the audience couldn't quite work out if Jean was evil at this point or not, so tell you what, let's make a strikingly laughable visual metaphor for her instead. Oh, she is bad because she's wearing a red trench coat again. Awful. I haven't even mentioned how Dark Phoenix completely ignores the established setup of Jean's Phoenix powers from X-Men Apocalypse, or the terrible one-note side villain portrayed by Jessica Chastain, because I don't want to. I really don't want to, because there was no point. Jessica Chastain's villain is the definition of a throwaway villain. You could take her out of it and it wouldn't make any difference, aside from the rewarding ending, which is stupid. Absolutely stupid. The X-Men franchise should have ended with Logan and Days of Future Past. Two films at the top of their game, both creatively and performance-wise. Instead, the X-Men films have slipped into dreaded mediocrity. And it's a shame. It's a tremendous shame. And what happens now with the Disney acquisition of the characters and their imminent folding into the Marvel Cinematic Universe alongside Thor and Spider-Man has been the root of much speculation for people. You know, I don't really know. For me, the X-Men need a really hard reboot that celebrates the characters, and one that is done slowly and properly. Or it just needs to be left alone for 5 years in the hopes that this stain of boredom has washed out. Before this film, I was of the opinion that you could, let it end here and then start afresh almost immediately, but this film is so bad, and it follows up a bad film in X-Men Apocalypse that an audience just won't have any interest. It's kind of like the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four needs to be something so different if they're going to reboot it, which from rumours abound that they will be rebooting it. Now, if they're going to reboot it, they said it in the 60s. That's how you do it. Fantastic Four in the 60s, Cold War. I'd buy that for $1. But with X-Men, I don't know what the answer is. Because people have it in their heads that Wolverine is the main character, and that's not strictly the case. The case was here that Hugh Jackman was fantastic. Maybe he was too good. But nevertheless, that is it. Dark Phoenix. A terrible film. Really, really terrible film. Saved by a handful of performances in Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy. And to be fair, Sophie Turner does her best, but the dialogue doesn't help her at all. It just doesn't help her whatsoever. She has the right emotion there, but it all seems monotone. It all seems like one type of emotion. There's nothing for her to really grasp onto. She doesn't wrestle with anything enough, as in the comics. There's a whole arc in the comics of, her slowly being consumed and really, really being, hampered by this power until she snaps. But there's none of that here. It just happens instantaneously without much context. Her reactions to, learning the truth is that of a petulant child rather than, a strong, powerful woman. It's disappointing. But there you go. Utterly rubbish. Saved by those performances. Saved by... I wouldn't even say saved, really. Mildly kept afloat by the ending train sequence. And I would love to have seen the original test footage without that train sequence, if indeed it was added in the reshoots. I would love to have seen the original ending, because it's still garbage. It's still utterly rubbish. And for that reason, I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. What an utter waste of time. Right. So that's it for today. I think the next film out is... Just trying to think. Next film out, is it Men in Black International? I'm pretty sure the reviews have started coming out for that. I haven't seen any, so I've got no idea. But may go and see that. I'm not entirely sure yet. But keep yourself posted. If you like this video, please leave a like at the bottom. Leave a comment. Subscribe as well. Why not? Just for a laugh. And that is it for today. Thank you very much for watching. See you again soon.